So, now going to do a review of The Insider, which is quite a funny title. Um, I always used to enjoy putting vegetables in cider as a menu, sort of a side dish in fine dining restaurants. Um, Yeah, so what I think, funnily enough, like I took some hallucinogenics 2 days ago, something called ipomaces. They're also called morning glory, uh, which I figured was maybe a way to try and put people off doing them because I guess they think that if people won't want to do drugs that they think are a like if if you're saying you're ingesting morning glory seeds, it sort of sounds like you're swallowing semen, doesn't it? So. I guess maybe it's a way to put off people who are afraid of being called gay or some shit. Uh, but yeah, my brain seems to be healing. Like whether it's also potentially the vitamin D supplement that I'm taking. I think I have Italian blood, and I'm half Italian, so I tan really easily. And I think that in this country, I was reading that 10 to 15 minutes of sunshine every 3 days is how much you need. But I think that might be dependent on what your DNA is, because when I take 4,000 IU vitamin D spray, I feel fucking great. And also, like maybe it's that, maybe it's also partly the hallucinogenics. But now I'm sort of forming much better ways to do these videos. I think quite uh, it doesn't quite seem like I'm forming better ways of doing these videos by ranting for 2 minutes about how I'm forming better ways of doing these videos. But anyway, so I watched last night The Insider. I've watched quite a few things over the last few days. I watched Joe Rogan's Burn the Boats. I did think it was good. I don't want to review it. I've also been watching the Batman cartoon on Amazon. It's not been able to keep my attention. I don't know why. I might need to because I've tried to watch it twice and I just basically breezed through like 6 episodes without paying too much attention. I did find that one bit of one of the episodes was pretty cool where I can't remember what the villain's name is, but he's a guy that goes around starting fires. And I believe that there were two police officers. They they say, oh, we've your costume and all of your weapons are in the boot of the car. Let's hope that and oh, isn't the boot of the car, doesn't it have the lock's broken, isn't it? Yeah, the lock's broken. You don't even need a key to get in there. And then they're like, oh, would you look at that? We seem to have a flat tire. Let's get out the car and look at that. And then they pull over to change their tire. And then the villain gets out of the car. The villain, who's like a pyromaniac, I think, gets out of the car and might even no, Pyro is X-Men, isn't he? He gets out of the car, gets his costume and his weapons back, and then runs away. Uh, and then they fake an assault on one of the police officers to make out that he attacked. That was one cool little bit. So like, obviously, there must be stuff in there that I will like. But like, I might need to leave it like 6 months. When you've done that, when you've watched something and you've fallen to sleep, or you've just got a cat trying to walk over my keyboard. You've either fallen to sleep or just weren't paying attention, too much daydreaming or looking at your phone, and you are now distracted by my cat, and so you didn't really pay attention. But then you see something in it, and you go, "I probably like it." I did that years ago with Castle Rock. I did that years ago with the series that was based on Stephen King's universe, Castle Rock. I watched like most of I watched the first couple of episodes a few times and just kept fading out. And then when I sort of went, no, I'm going to put my phone away and I'm going to pay attention to this, I really, really, really fucking enjoyed it. So, but it might be one of them that I've just got to give it a small break because I feel like I've tried to watch it a couple of times now. I'd rather give it a break till I forget what the storyline is. Anyway, The Insider. Now, I was talking to a friend just before watching this, and I said, like, This is a film that I've only seen once, and it wasn't long after it came out. I even remember what house I was in when I watched it. I reckon I was under 14 when I watched this film, and I've only seen it once. However, I remember most of the storyline. I remember which actors were in it. I remember so much about the storyline, about how it played out, even like scenes, shots were ingrained in my head. Um, and yeah, which is crazy for me. Like usually when I like a film, I watch it again and again and again. I'll get into why there might be a reason that I didn't watch it again and again and again. Obviously there's going to be spoilers in this, but so I like. I think that, but like I can watch that. Sometimes I'll be watching a horror film and I will get halfway through the film and I go, oh, I've seen this before. Do you know what I mean? And like I would have, it only came out 2 years ago. Do you know what I mean? I'll be watching a sort of like crappy horror film. What, not crappy, I love horror, but like, if you're a horror fan, you know what I mean when I say a crappy horror film. Like 90% of Blumhouse the last few years. Um, so like you get to that point where yeah, this will happen where like I can be watching a film and then realize halfway through that I've seen it before. Yet with The Insider, I remember it all, and it must have been over 20 years ago that I watched it, and it's the only time that I saw it. And so it's based on a book called The Man Who Knew Too Much, um, which is a fictionalized account of a true story. Um, and basically, I'll go into how I think that they tried to, funnily enough, produced by Disney. I often I just want to get this out there that I love Disney Pixar films, a load of Disney films that I like. I often don't like I remember not being happy when Vice was taken over by Disney and Fox because I believed that Vice were doing great journalism. Then they started not doing what I thought was great journalism. Now, the last 6 months seem to have gone back to it, and it seems like they now use somebody the person who sold the company to Fox and Disney. I think he's now taken back over as head of creative or something. I'm not quite sure, but I know that stuff I've been reading on their website and different videos that I've been watching on YouTube, I've enjoyed a lot more than the content that I've been watching for the last 5, 6 years. Anyway, just a review advice. But like with Disney, sometimes they get a bad rap. Sometimes I've given them a bad rap. But knowing that they produced this film uh, is good in a lot of ways. So what this is about is it's basically as I said, based on a true story about a guy who was like obviously with this being fictionalized, like it's basically a story about a guy who was like he was a scientist. I think he was a biochemist, and he was also a CEO. I think he was a CEO, something super high ranking in a tobacco industry. I don't think they actually used the real name of the tobacco company that he worked for. Basically, what had happened was he was going through some stuff. It was at the time where they were basically using what's that stuff that's in ammonia. They were using some process with ammonia in order to get nicotine to hit people um, so much quicker. I sort of talked about this the other day when I was talking about how I'd smoked a few cigarettes the other day after predominantly being quit for like 7 years. Um, which I usually do when I drink, and I regret it, but I also feel like seeing as I only drink once every couple of months now, I sort of feel like, well, having a few cigarettes when I have a few beers every couple of months, not the worst. Um, as long as I don't smoke when I'm sober is sort of what I think. I mean, I like doing exercise. It fucks up my breathing. Do you know what I mean? That's the main reason for me not to smoke. It doesn't really matter what people say about it. It's neither here nor there. It's the fact that when I go for a run, my breathing's fucked up when I smoke. That's all it comes down to for me. Um, But basically, the tobacco industries at that time, I'm not quite sure when the true story happened, but I think it might be early 90s, possibly before that. I'm going to take a guess at early 90s just because the film was 99. Um, but basically, at that time, there were court cases. I don't know if you call them depositions, I'm not quite sure. But there were court cases in the US that they had on record that have been filmed where all these CEOs of these major tobacco companies have been going out. You have to understand this is at a time where they were just lying about tobacco and nicotine. They were just saying that it helped you. So, like, they had these people who were the CEOs of the company who were saying, it's nicotine is not an addictive substance, right? So they had all these people going on out in court in the like on record in these American courtrooms saying no, there is absolutely no evidence that nicotine is addictive, but at the same time they were trying to increase the time that it took, like, sorry, decrease the amount of time that it took for nicotine to hit you, because I think prior to that it used to take like 10 minutes, 15 minutes for nicotine to go from the tobacco and the smoke into your lungs. So people would only smoke like a few cigarettes a day, because they didn't attribute that like calming feeling necessarily to cigarettes when it psychologically when it takes that long for it to hit you. You know, your mind doesn't necessarily attribute the um it being the cigarette that's calmed you down. So what they did was they made it so that it lasted seconds. That they were and ammonia, not exactly known as being. I think they put ammonia in cleaning chemicals. I think your piss has ammonia in. When fish goes off, when like I'm not sure if it's with meat as well. When fish goes off, that bad smell, that's ammonia. So they were basically working on on using ammonia being ingested into your lungs with the along with the smoke, along with what was already in a cigarette, all the carcinogenics and all the nicotine, tobacco, whatever, tar. Along with all that, they were then started experimenting with putting ammonia into this to see if it could hit your bloodstream quicker. Now, like, just a quick explanation of how this works. I did do this on another video, but it wasn't about the insider. So, like the way that nicotine works is it was common for us as kids to think that cigarettes made you less stressed. But the only reason that cigarettes make you less stressed is because you when you're not addicted to nicotine, you never have a level of nicotine in your body that gets less stressed from having nicotine. As soon as you start smoking, as soon as you start getting addicted to nicotine, it's almost like a bar that goes up and up and up and up and up and up and up. And then when you have a cigarette, it goes back down. And then I think it might be actually up until 24 hours until you actually really, really, really feel like you need a cigarette. But people often just take a break. The reason why when you eat, you feel like you want a cigarette is because usually when you don't have nicotine in your system and you eat, it's a time where your body is supposed to feel more relaxed. So, but if you have a rise in the amount that you need nicotine, your body also thinks that you want a cigarette at the same time. I guess it's the same with why people smoke on a break at work or on lunch, but actually, you don't actually really need a cigarette for like 24 hours. I think this is based on a documentary I watched again about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Um, so it's a weird concept where people say, "Oh, it makes you less stressed." It only makes you less stressed because you're addicted to nicotine. It's the same as saying heroin makes you, well, it's not the same as saying heroin makes you less stressed. Heroin does make you pretty spaced out, but like cigarettes, they only actually make you relax because of the nicotine that you're addicted to. Um, So, and all these people have been going out and saying no, nicotine is not addictive, but then have been at the same time working on ways to get nicotine to hit you faster, knowing that psychologically, if they could get it to hit you, like within the first few burns of your cigarette, that psychologically you would attribute being less stressed to the cigarette making you less stressed. So this guy, who's a CEO and also a biochemist or whatever, he starts sending emails to the person that works at the start sending emails to the people basically saying, no, I don't want to proceed with this. You're saying that it's not addictive, so I want it to be shown that it's. The thing is, I'm guessing a lot of you have already seen this film if you're watching this review, so I probably don't need to go through the exact storyline. But I guess how it makes me feel now, what it does to me is it brings back like it basically like there are so many things in this film which are what happened to me, which have been what has been happening to me. Now, these people are like so there are parts where like on the screen it flashes up on his computer screen. Shut your fucking mouth. We're going to kill you. You rat fuck or something, right? Um, he's having people stalking him at the golf range. He's having people stalk him in the streets. He's having people have gone up to his mailbox and just put a bullet in there. They've like cut all his medical benefits and hacked him financially. I don't know quite how. I can't really remember exactly how it said that they attacked him financially. They just talk about it at the end. They also like there are three states in the US where they basically say that if he does speak about this, if he ever steps foot in those states, he'll be put into prison. So threatening him with prison time, you know. And like loads of the tactics of what they do is what has been happening to me now. Like, I'm sure that Boots or Walgreens would like to take um would like to take the audits for this or whatever, right? But this has been going on to me for time. This has been going on since I was in school, as far as I see it, and I think that's probably because of the shit I was saying about the church and the education system way back when I was experiencing that. It probably didn't help that I then went to work for Capital One, and like the only place that I signed an NDA was Eon, um, and I don't really care that I'm about to break that necessarily, but I did think that it would be cool to work for Eon. However, I think after 16 years, I'm not sure if I uh, am bound by that. Even if I am, I don't really fucking care. But like, I at each place that I worked, so basically when I worked at Capital One, I was 17 when I started at Capital One. I know that I was 17 because I remember the woman saying, "We don't usually take people on that are under 18, but you seem like you'd be a great candidate for us." Within the training, I went, "These people are fucking scum." Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, when they're trying to get you so much on their side and you're working for a credit card company, and the shit that they were trying to tell you was like, if someone's threatening suicide, what do you do? Like, basically laughing it off and being like, you don't give a fuck, lad. Do you know what I mean? It was like, what? If there's a woman with a child screaming and she says, I have to go and pick up my child, do you let her get off the phone or do you make sure that before she gets off the phone and goes to the child that you get a payment arrangement in place? It's all shit like that, and I was thinking like, fuck these people, man. So like, I didn't realize that it wasn't acceptable to be working for a company and to go talk to your mates and go, this is the shit that they're instilling in these people that work for this company. I didn't know that like that wasn't a done thing. I thought like you work for a credit card company, they tell you that they apply a £12 mispayment like they would tell us that legally they could only charge for administration costs, yet they still charge £12 if you missed a payment, and they still charge £12 for something else. That I remember that near enough every single account was getting £24 in charges, not included. Oh, if you were over your limit, so you could be charged £12 that would take you over your limit. You would then get charged £12 for being over your limit, and you would then also be getting the interest. But they would tell us that it was, they would essentially go, oh, by the way, it's fucking illegal. It's illegal, mate. It's illegal what we're doing. Like you were going to laugh along with them and go, oh, this is just fucking pure brilliance, this. Like, do you know what I mean? So they would say, oh, actually, all you can be charged for is the cost of sending out an automated email. Do you know what I mean? The administration cost of applying a charge is what you can charge for, but we charge £24 plus the interest. So I didn't think that that was bad. I thought like these people aren't good people, so I just went out and talked about that. The same happened at Eon when they talked about they got us to sign an NDA because at the time there was a huge increase in energy costs. This would have been 2008 2008, I would say. There was a financial crisis at that time. Well, they said financial crisis, but didn't seem to be that bad. But there was and basically what they were doing was they were buying their energy like 15 years in advance, but they had just started to had to pay a higher price for their oil and gas. So they basically said, you can't go out and tell people that we're charging that this huge price hike. It's not actually for the oil that we have. We actually paid fuck all for that. We paid pennies for it. Now we're being charged like a quid. I can't remember the rates and the costs, but they were basically saying we're now like tripling our costs because of the amounts that we're paying now, even though we're charging them for gas and oil that we've been holding on to from that we stocked up 15 years ago. And they made us sign an NDA that you just talk about these things, don't you? You just go out and you just go, this isn't cool. I don't really agree with that. I don't really agree that the CEOs of these companies are getting paid millions, 4 million bonuses and shit. Do you know what I mean? You're like, how come they get a 4 million bonus, but like we're fucking. But not only are people on minimum wage, but then we're shagging all of our customers. This is crazy. And you think, well, that's the answer, isn't it? The reason that you're shagging all of your customers and the reason that you're paying a bunch of people fuck all is so that people can get 4 million fucking bonus. And that's just the top person. That's not all the people just below them who are going to be getting equally as ridiculous sized bonuses. And then I did the same thing at Boots. But except with Boots, they didn't tell us anything. I just figured it out, which is probably worse for them. Because they probably don't get people to sign NDAs anymore because you're really not dealing with anything that you can't talk about. You can't talk about customer information. You can't give out addresses. They don't even let you have pens on your table. But like I could talk about, I took 2 phone calls who said my pharmacist is bullying me. They're laughing at me. They know that I'm suicidal and I'm going to get my cancer medication. This pharmacist held my medication over the counter and then snatched it back, laughed at me and said I had to go sit down and wait. Uh, like weird shit like that, man. You know that you can talk about that because I'm not naming that person. You can talk about the insane amount of racism and sexism that was going on in that office. You can talk about the illegal the way that they get round still committing illegal business practice essentially, but not calling it illegal business practice. Like, I was obviously going to talk about that. I was obviously going to talk about how Walgreens have been fined 15 billion and didn't give a flying fuck about getting fined. Like, but I guess they don't make you sign an NDA because they're not telling you anything, especially if it's all just stuff that you're going, I'm figuring this out as nothing to do with work. Do you know what I mean? I'm investigating these people in my own time. I was already investigating those people. And then what they did was try and make out that I went in there as a spy. Like, I wasn't going in there to spy about. I wasn't going in there to spy at Capital One. I just wanted a job. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't going in there to spy at Eon. I just wanted a job. I wasn't going in there to spy at Boots, even though some people seem to think that I was. So I went in there and took the piss out of the fact that people thought I was going in there to spy. I wasn't going in there to spy. When bullshit was happening around me, I was just going to talk about the bullshit that was happening around me. Do you know what I mean? That's as clear cut as it could possibly get. Anyway, so I've done that shit multiple times. Even just down to churches, people that I know within churches. And they do exactly the same to me. Last night I was typing on WhatsApp and like as quick as I can type, the suggestions would be direct insults towards me. This has been going on for years. Like and when I would try to screenshot it, the suggestion would disappear. Like newspaper articles, adverts that are just faked to like adverts all the time to like insult me, take the piss out of me, people stalking me and harassing me in the streets all the time and doing shit like that. Like, do you know what I mean? What they basically do is it was so funny for me to watch the solicitors. Like, how can you go into a courtroom? You know what the situation is now as well, right? You think that they need people like me because essentially what's going to happen is let's say I can't imagine I would ever be put into a courtroom, right? That when I sought legal advice over the boot situation and a situation with HMV, they said you weren't employed long enough for any, and the thing is, what they were saying is we could get you your job back with Boots. We couldn't get you your job back with HMV. You might be due up to like fucking a certain amount of money from Boots for this, but like if it's within this time frame, blah blah blah, they probably don't want to take me to court because I don't know enough that could actually really hurt them, and I probably wouldn't. I what at the time they were saying you could get some compensation, what with or your job back. I was like, well, I definitely don't want my job back. And what's the fucking point in going through like months and months and months to just get a tiny bit of compensation in which they'll probably tell me to keep my mouth shut for like 2 grand? Do you know what I mean? Seemed insane. But like, what my point, there's a scene where they're in the courtroom, and the way that the solicitor's talking to the other solicitor, and the way that the solicitor for the tobacco company is talking to the witness, and he's saying, "You're going to keep your mouth shut, or this is going to happen, and this is going to happen." And I thought, what's funny now is everything's been so corrupt for so long, the everything that I would say, let's say that I went, these people are all harassing me, stalking me, but I couldn't prove it. Let's say, for example, they put a bullet in your post box. You can't prove who's left that bullet there. They hack your computer and say, "Shut your fucking mouth, we're going to kill you, you rat." You can't prove that that's happened. Even if you just screenshot something, like they're going to be able to come up with a bunch of it. They only do things. They only turn the screw because you can't prove it. I can't prove people are breaking into my flat. I can leave cameras on pointing at both doors that I have into my flat all day. They could just hack my computer and change that footage. And on top of that, the reason that they want me to do that is so they can say, well, that's why we use CCTV to stop people from breaking into our flat, to stop people from breaking into our country. They just say that there's exactly the same thing. It's just all a ploy so that they can give a reason to take your human rights. It's the same thing as, well, you smoked a cigarette so we can pollute the water systems and the air that you breathe. It's madness. It's stupid shit that gets through to people somehow. But anyway, so like there's this solicitor talking to this other solicitor and going, oh, yeah, like that, that you're not able to, that you're going to, hey client, you're going to shut up, you're not going to say this, blah 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 blah. And you think all the people, at least 40% of the people in that courtroom know what this tobacco company has done to that person. They know that that's how people get treated. Because the majority of those people, if they're any sort of human being, have stood up for something in the past. And they've more than likely been treated like that to an extent. All the police officers know that that's what happens because they do that shit to people. Do you know what I mean? All the judges, they know that that's how their system works. But what you do is you go, well, we can't legally prove any of that. However, they all know that it's the case. So, like, let's talk about what might happen if I was ever dragged into a courtroom. Because in this film, um, the guy's story is able, because he's gone into a courtroom and it's been put on the record. He's then able to break his NDA, and they're then able to put the show on the news, on the 60 Minutes it is. So like what had to happen was they had to get him to talk in a courtroom, because if he could talk in a courtroom, it was then public record, and once it was public record, they could then put it on TV. Without it being public record, he would have been breaking an NDA. So, which is quite a clever way around it, I guess. Probably, I don't know if you would still be able to do that now. Um, but essentially, what happens is the story gets out. What happens after they realize that he's going to be able to talk is the tobacco company threatens the CBS. At first, what they do is threaten to destroy his reputation. So they go out and they say, "We're going to destroy his reputation." Wygand, I think his name is. So they say, "We're going to destroy his reputation." And surprisingly, the Wall Street Journal are the people that want to run with the story. Would Wall Street would Wall Street possibly have any issues there with the major tobacco companies in the US getting taken down? Hmm. Why would Wall Street have a problem with that? Do you know what I mean? So they tried to run this character assassination. Then another media outlet says the majority of that is false or over exaggerated. So they basically realize that they're not going to be able to discredit the guy through these various things that they've dug up. So then what they do is they go after I think it's CBS, and they basically say that they're going to buy it, that they would sue CBS for that much money that they would own CBS after the litigation process. But then what happens is, so that one of the journalists sides with the owner of the company and says we need to back down because otherwise we're not going to be able to do anything with this. And the other guy played by Al Pacino. Yeah, obviously I don't think I have to mention that Al Pacino and I don't think I have to mention that the film's really well directed, you know, and shot. I think it's Michael Mann that does the direction, who doesn't always do the most serious. Actually, I would look into some other films that he's done quickly. I get a feeling that he has made some films that I am a big fan of. Also, I think he's done some films that weren't that great. Heat, a little bit cheesy. Ali, that was a good film. I haven't seen that for a long time. Collateral, perfect blend of cheese and serious. That film, great if you just like action films. Great if you like a little bit of a message. Was good, man. Miami Vice, haven't seen that. Public Enemies again. I remember enjoying it. I don't remember enjoying it as much as I thought, as much as I wanted to enjoy it. Wow, we did Manhunter. Interesting. Based on Red Dragon. So yeah, fan of his work. But this is a good film. And yeah, so essentially they threaten to destroy the whole company. So they threaten to say, well, we're going to burn down, what, like, through the amount that we would sue you for, we would own your company. Um, So yes, and then eventually, because other, like, I think it was mainly the journalist. I think they get like New York, yeah, the New York Times to disclose the full story. So off the back of that, 60 Minutes then airs the full segment, and you think, well, what happened with that really was within like it might have taken a while. A lot less people stopped smoking. A lot of people stopped smoking, talking about like the three people in my family that smoked, all of them stopped smoking. My dad, my uncle, over that time. I don't think it was anything to do with I don't think it was necessarily anything to do with the insider, but probably was to do with the insider. But what's that term called? Is it an indirect fracture? Like probably through the insider getting public opinion to be that the tobacco companies were literally just ripping us off in order to murder us. They didn't give a fuck about people. They were trying to get people addicted quicker and they just wanted to murder everybody. It had gone from people thinking that tobacco was a medicine. Do you know what I mean? So, like, you didn't have to watch The Insider for The Insider to infiltrate enough people in the US and the UK for enough people to be influenced that they influenced other people to say that no, the tobacco company just want to fucking murder you. They don't give a fuck about it. This is not a business set up for the people. They literally just want to murder you, and they don't give a fuck about humanity, about people. Um, so you think that even if you didn't watch that film, you probably felt the effects of what it did to the tobacco industry. They're now just at least vapes seem to be safer. You know, there seems to be a lot of kids getting into vaping. I would say that kids getting into vaping is better than kids getting into smoking. However, we don't know what the full effects are, and it's very possible that in 20 years' time we might see some really negative effects of that. I still think that it's probably better than smoking cigarettes, you know? If there is some sort of, it's basically ingesting a sugar liquid with a load of chemicals in it on top of ingesting nicotine. I'm not sure if it's good. People seem to chew loads of nicotine gum though and not really have too many problems. Anyway, um, so yeah, I think that like I could relate to this film because this shit's been happening to me for a long time. You know, I was treated like that at Boots. I was treated like that since school, really. I've always been treated as like a whistleblower or whatever, but I've only done it in like minor, in minor ways. Do you know what I mean? And I guess what that says to me is that I really need to go and work for a company that isn't. In the next job that I have, I either need to work for myself because I know that I'm not going to murder people or do any crazy shit. And if I do any crazy shit, I'll just go, well, I'm just one person, and I can explain why I did certain things. I wouldn't be doing things en masse to murder people. for profit, or murder people full stop. Um, but yeah, I guess what that said to me was I should either work for myself or I should work for companies that are doing the right thing in the world. Because quite clearly, what I have a problem with is companies ripping people off, mugging people off. Do you know what I mean? So it's got a good message in there. One thing that I would say, I don't think it's massively layered. Not everything needs to be layered. I wanted to draw some stuff last night that had zero meaning. Do you know what I mean? I just wanted to draw last night because I just wanted to draw. Do you know what I mean? So like, not everything has to have these super layered meanings, but I don't think I would watch it again really because I don't think there was much rewatch value. I think it was one of those that you've seen it once, you don't need to see it again. You don't need to go back and watch it for, oh, is there another way that I can look at this? Is there another way that I can look at this? Everything's sort of there for you to see, you know. I did think that there was a film called The Man Who Knew Too Little, which was, I think it was probably, that was released in 97. I think this book was released in 93. So and this film was called The Man Who Knew Too Little. It was about a spy who kept doing clumsy shit but accidentally ending up uh, killing everybody that he needed to kill. And you think that was probably if The Man Who Knew Too Much came out, right, and was definitely going to be heavily attacking the tobacco industry and near enough destroying it, near enough destroying the tobacco industry. Obviously, they would try and get revenge by creating a film that would try to insult that person, right? Which happens to me all the fucking time. I don't even know why I get like 2 views on my shit, man. It's crazy. Um, I guess they don't care if you get 2 views or a million views. I also think that they attack multiple targets with the same shit. Do you know what I mean? They could essentially think that the man who knew too much is attacking any whistleblower in any industry. They could have just based it mainly on the guy that Russell Crowe's portraying, Jeffrey Wigand. Um, but yeah, I did think calling something The Man Who Knew Too Little that came out a couple of years after the book The Man Who Knew Too Much, like I figured that's their way of trying to fuck him. And yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed that Bill Murray was in it, but like, unless he didn't know that what the purpose of it was, sort of thing. Groundhog Day, great film where he's obviously trying to help people live a better life, you know. Um, But all in all, yeah, I would say watchable if you've not seen it before. You're probably only watching this if you have seen it. Um, but yeah, well acted and a great message to take home with you, really. A great message to take home of if you do the right things will happen within the world. Do you know what I mean? If you stand up for the right things will happen in the world. But I did sort of think, but I think back then, people weren't aware, even after Nixon and stuff, and even after stuff was proved about how corrupt institutions are, with like, how corrupt big business and how corrupt government can be, people still just go, well, we need this piece of paper that's been signed in order to prove that this person is not a complete scumbag. We need this piece of paper that's been signed, and that says that people aren't scumbags, or that says that people are scumbags. And like, you think at least 40% of the whole courtroom, including both sides of solicitors, including like half the amount of people that are there as whatever they're called, like a jury, including the judge, like so many people, the person that's judging and both the groups of solicitors are all based. They all know that all of this shit would have been going on. They all know that because the solicitors all sit down with Russell Crowe and they go, listen, they're going to make your life hard. I know they've already been making your life hard. I know they've already been doing this. They're going to make it worse for you. They already know what types of tactics these companies and these organizations use. So like the judge would have been a solicitor for a long time, lawyer for a long time. He would also or she would also know all of that. And you think that the only benefit there is when you go into a courtroom and you basically fuck somebody over because you try to dig up all of their past and go, look at what they did when they were this, look at what they did here. If If all of those people in that courtroom know that you're a scumbag corporation, they're probably going to fuck you so much worse. Do you know what I mean? You do sort of think like, look, there really isn't a tobacco industry anymore, and there definitely won't be much of one in it's definitely much smaller, and within 10 years there probably isn't going to be one really at all. So I think the one that people do go for these huge industries, the right thing does happen. And you think that those people that have gone out in order to carry out those sorts of crimes against people, they're basically going out like what's happening there? If the legal system goes, we can't prosecute you, they now know your names. Do you know what I mean? They now know all of the names of people. If the person on the other side is going, this person is directly involved in this. This person's family then went out of their way to try and do this shit. This person, this person, this person, this person. The court then sort of the court and the police and the decent people within the communities go, I now know those people's names that have tried to murder in the name of murder. Do you know what I mean? Those tobacco company people, those well, energy companies not quite as bad as doing it to the world, I guess. Those energy companies, those pharmaceutical companies that are going out of their way to murder people, those fucking banking systems, etc., etc. You think, well, now that that person's gone in there, they now know the names of all of those people that are fighting on the side of murdering innocent people, turning the poor, the working class, and the middle class all against each other in order to profit off murder. They then have the names of those people, their addresses, their company names. So you think, well, it's absolutely fine. You almost think of somebody like me, like, okay, put me in prison for a couple of years, put me in a fake prison for a couple of years, have me stalked, have me harassed, because through you fucking me, one person, I've just fucked and outed so many of you. And the court of public opinion can be so much worse, you know. Anyway, yeah, that was my opinion of the Insider. I thought it was good. I thought it was definitely worth watching. I would say that maybe people in their mid to late teens, early 20s should probably watch this film and take it with them with the rest of their life, you know. Anyway, great film. Uh, uh, Great film, good film, well acted, well laid out.